I should have never opened that box. It changed everything in my life.
My name is Alex Grant, and I'm about to tell you how I discovered my wife was running what essentially amounted to a small brothel out of our suburban home while I worked 12 feet away in my office. If that doesn't grab your attention, you're probably dead inside. It started on a Tuesday morning in October, the kind of crisp fall day that makes you think life might actually be decent for once. I was hunched over my laptop in what used to be our dining room, but now served as my IT consulting headquarters, complete with 3 monitors, enough cables to rig a suspension bridge, and a coffee maker that had seen more action than a Navy SEAL. The house was quiet, except for the hum of my equipment and the distant sound of our cleaning lady, Marta, working upstairs. Marta Rodriguez. Okay, I know I said no Rodriguez names, but this is different. She's not a main character. Actually, let me restart this properly. Our cleaning lady, Marta Gonzalez, had been with us for 3 years. She was precise, loyal, and had the kind of radar for nonsense that made her invaluable in a house where my wife Melissa practiced real estate, which is basically professional lying with better clothes. I was deep in debugging code for a client when I heard Marta's footsteps coming down the stairs faster than usual. She appeared in my doorway holding a small wooden box I'd never seen before, her face flushed with embarrassment. "Mr. Alex," she said in her careful English, "I found this hidden behind the dresser in your bedroom. It fell when I was moving it to clean." The box was maybe 8 inches square, made of dark wood with a small brass latch. It looked expensive and completely foreign to me. I'd lived in this house for 15 years, and I was pretty sure I knew every piece of furniture we owned. "I've never seen this before," I said, taking it from her. "Where exactly did you find it?" "Behind Mrs. Melissa's dresser, on her side. It was taped underneath the bottom drawer." That was weird. Melissa wasn't exactly the type to hide things. She was more of a leave important documents scattered across the kitchen counter kind of person. I turned the box over in my hands, noting its weight. There was definitely something inside. "Should I?" Marta gestured vaguely, clearly wanting to escape whatever domestic drama was about to unfold. "Yeah, go ahead and finish upstairs. Thanks for bringing this to me." After she left, I sat staring at the box for a full 5 minutes. Part of me wanted to just put it back where Marta found it and pretend this never happened. But curiosity ended the cat, and apparently it was about to homicide my marriage, too. I opened the latch. The first thing I saw was a black silk pouch, the kind jewelry comes in from expensive stores. Underneath that were several USB flash drives, each labeled with dates going back 6 months. And at the bottom, a small notebook with Melissa's handwriting. I opened the silk pouch first. Inside were items that definitely didn't belong to my wife and me. Expensive items. Items that suggested our bedroom had been hosting activities I wasn't invited to. A leather collar with a small silver tag that read, "Property of Jack's." Handcuffs that looked like they'd seen actual use. Other things I won't describe in detail, but let's just say someone had been having a much better time in my house than I had. My hands were shaking as I picked up one of the flash drives. The label read M&J, September 15th. That was last month. I'd been in Chicago for a client meeting that week. I plugged the drive into my laptop. What I found next made me question everything I thought I knew about my life. The drive contained dozens of photos and videos, all featuring my wife Melissa in various states of undress with a man I didn't recognize. He was younger than me, probably mid-30s, with a kind of gym-sculpted body that screamed personal trainer or Instagram influencer. The photos were explicit, but what made my stomach drop wasn't just the cheating. It was the professional quality of everything. These weren't spontaneous moments of passion. They were staged, lit, and filmed like content meant to be shared. I grabbed another flash drive. This one was labeled M&T, August 22nd. Different partner, same professional setup. Melissa with a woman this time. Someone I recognized as Tara, one of her closest friends. They weren't just having affairs. They were documenting everything. The notebook was the final nail in the coffin. Pages of handwritten notes in Melissa's careful script. Jack's, Thursdays too, 4 p.m. when A is in meetings. Tara, weekends when A takes kids to soccer. New client interested in couples content. Discuss rates. Equipment needs, better lighting, second camera angle rates. She was charging people. My wife wasn't just cheating on me. She was running a side business as an escort or cam girl or whatever you call it, when someone turns your bedroom into a film studio. And she was doing it while I sat 12 feet away, completely oblivious, earning money to pay for the house where she was literally prostituting herself. I sat back in my chair, staring at the evidence spread across my desk. 15 years of marriage, 2 kids, a mortgage, joint bank accounts, and my wife had been living a completely separate life that involved our bedroom, our bed, and apparently our friends. The front door slammed, and I heard Melissa's voice calling out her usual greeting. "Alex, I'm home. Did you remember to eat lunch, or are you still pretending coffee counts as a meal?" I quickly closed the laptop and shoved everything back into the box. My mind was racing, but one thing was crystal clear. I wasn't going to confront her right now. Not when I was this angry. Not when I hadn't figured out exactly how I was going to destroy her life in return. "Just finishing up a client call," I yelled back, surprised at how normal my voice sounded. "Give me 5 minutes." I heard her heels clicking across the hardwood as she headed to the kitchen. Melissa always wore heels, even around the house. She said it kept her in professional mode. Now I wondered what kind of professional mode she'd been in while I was away. I locked the box in my desk drawer and tried to act normal for the rest of the day. We had dinner with the kids. Jamie, our 17-year-old daughter who was already smarter than both of us, and Tyler, our 14-year-old son who was going through that phase where everything his parents did was embarrassing. Normal family conversation. Normal complaints about school and friends and weekend plans. Melissa was her usual self. Charming, funny, completely convincing. She told us about her days showing houses to picky clients, complained about other real estate agents undercutting her prices, and asked me about my work with the kind of interest that seemed genuine. That night, after the kids went to bed, we watched Netflix like we did most evenings. Melissa curled up next to me on the couch, her head on my shoulder, occasionally commenting on the show or scrolling through her phone. She seemed completely relaxed, completely normal. Either she was a sociopath, or she was so comfortable with her double life that she'd forgotten it was supposed to be secret. I waited until she fell asleep, then went back to my office and spent the next 3 hours going through every flash drive in that box. By the time I was done, I had a complete picture of my wife's extracurricular activities. She'd been doing this for at least 8 months. The early videos were amateur, just her and this Jax guy, but they quickly became more sophisticated. Better equipment, multiple camera angles, different partners, men and women, sometimes both at once. Some faces I recognized, Tara, obviously, but also Simone, another one of Melissa's real estate friends, and at least 2 men I'd met at neighborhood barbecues. The notebook contained more than just schedules. There were payment records, client preferences, and what looked like a business plan. Melissa wasn't just cheating, she was building a brand, and she was making good money doing it, based on the numbers I was seeing. I closed the laptop and sat in the dark for a long time, thinking. I could confront her tomorrow, demand an explanation, file for divorce, and try to move on with my life. That would be the mature, reasonable thing to do, but I wasn't feeling particularly mature or reasonable. I was feeling like a man who just discovered that his entire life was a lie, and that the woman he'd trusted with everything had been treating him like an idiot for months. So instead of planning a confrontation, I started planning something else entirely. If Melissa wanted to play games, I'd show her how games were really played. But first, I needed to talk to a lawyer. I drafted an email to Miriam Klein, the most ruthless divorce attorney in the city. Then I sent a text to Melissa. "We need to talk tomorrow night. Don't be late." If she thought this was going to be another boring evening of discussing household budgets and weekend plans, she was in for the surprise of her life. Melissa got home at 7:30 the next evening, which was actually early for her. She'd been showing houses to a client, though now I wondered if that was code for something entirely different. She walked into the kitchen where I was sitting at our dining table with a beer and the wooden box placed directly in the center like a centerpiece from hell. "Hey, babe," she said, not noticing the box at first. She was looking at her phone, probably checking messages from her various clients. "Sorry I'm late. The Hendersons are being impossible about the price on that Colonial, and I had to—" She looked up and saw the box. Her face went completely white. "Sit down, Melissa." She stood frozen for a moment, then slowly pulled out the chair across from me. Her eyes never left the box. "Where did you find that? Does it matter? The question is, how long have you been running a prostitution ring out of our bedroom?" "Alex, I can explain." "I'm sure you can. You're good at explanations. You explained why you needed to work late so many nights. You explained why you needed that expensive camera equipment for listing photos. You explained why Tara and Simone were over here so often when I was traveling." I opened the box and pulled out one of the flash drives. Want to explain what's on here? Melissa's composure cracked. Tears started flowing, but they looked calculated, like she was trying to figure out which emotional response would work best. It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think. I've seen the videos, Melissa, all of them. I've read your little business journal, rates, schedules, client preferences. You turned our home into a brothel while I was working in the next room. It wasn't like that. It started as just exploration. Jax and I, we were just having fun, and then people wanted to watch, and it just grew from there. The money was good, and I thought, you thought what? That I was too stupid to notice? That I'd never find out? I pulled out the leather collar with the property of Jack's tag. Whose property are you, exactly? Because I was under the impression you were my wife. She flinched like I'd slapped her. Don't be cruel, Alex. Cruel? I laughed, and it didn't sound pleasant even to me. Melissa, you had more people in our bed than there are in my LinkedIn network. You charged money for Zex in the house I pay for while I was 12 feet away working to support our family. And you think I'm being cruel? The kids don't know anything. The kids don't know yet, but they're going to find out along with everyone else because this ends now. I leaned forward. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to pack your things and leave. Tonight. The kids stay with me, the house stays with me, and you get to walk away with whatever dignity you have left, which isn't much. You can't just throw me out. This is my house too. Actually, I can. I've already talked to a lawyer. Cheating is still grounds for fault-based divorce in this state, and I have enough evidence to bury you in court. Plus, depending on how much money you made from your little business venture, there might be tax implications you haven't considered. That hit home. Melissa had always been sloppy with financial details. I never thought about taxes. Of course you didn't. You were too busy thinking about how clever you were, sneaking around behind my back. I stood up. You have 1 hour to pack whatever you need for tonight. We'll figure out the rest through lawyers. Alex, please. We can work this out. It was a mistake. I was confused. I felt neglected. Neglected? I picked up the notebook and flipped through it. According to this, you were getting more action than a Navy port on shore leave. If you felt neglected, it's because you were too busy with your side hustle to notice your actual husband. She tried a different approach, reaching across the table to touch my hand. What about our family? What about the kids? You can't just break up their home because you're jealous. I pulled my hand away. Jealous? Melissa, I'm not jealous. I'm disgusted. There's a difference. And as for the kids' home, I'm not the one who broke it. You did that the first time you brought a stranger into our bedroom. It wasn't strangers. You know Tara, you know Simone. That makes it worse, not better. I sat back down, suddenly exhausted. How long have our friends known about this? How many people have been laughing at me behind my back? She didn't answer, which was answer enough. Get out, Melissa. Pack your things and get out. We'll communicate through lawyers from now on. She sat there for another minute, probably calculating whether tears or anger would be more effective. Finally, she chose anger. Fine, but don't think this is over. I'm not going to just disappear because you found some photos. I have rights, I have friends, and I have information about your precious business that your clients might find interesting. What information would that be? You think I don't know about the cash payments some of your clients make? The ones that don't show up on your tax returns? I stared at her. You mean the payments I deposit directly into our joint account? The ones you've been spending on camera equipment and lingerie? Those cash payments? Her face fell as she realized her mistake. I kept meticulous records of every penny I earned, precisely because I'd been audited once and never wanted to go through that again. She knew this, but apparently desperation had made her forget. Just pack your things, Melissa. This is embarrassing enough without you making threats you can't back up. She stood up, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. The kids are going to hate you for this. The kids are going to understand that their father didn't want to live with someone who was cheating on him for money. If they hate anyone, it'll be you. She stormed upstairs, and I could hear her slamming drawers and closet doors. I sat at the table, staring at the box and its contents, wondering how I'd missed all the signs. The new clothes, the mysterious appointments, the way she'd started working out more and paying attention to her appearance. I thought she was just taking better care of herself. Instead, she'd been preparing for her second career. 20 minutes later, she came back downstairs with 2 suitcases and her laptop bag. She changed into jeans and a sweater, and her face was red from crying or anger or both. "This isn't over," she said again. "Yes, it is. The only question now is whether it ends quietly or publicly. That's up to you." She opened her mouth to say something else, then apparently thought better of it. She grabbed her keys from the hook by the door and left without another word. I sat alone in the kitchen for a long time after she left, listening to the house settle around me. It felt different already, like a weight had been lifted. Or maybe like a bomb had gone off. I wasn't sure which. Around 10 o'clock, I heard footsteps on the stairs. Jamie appeared in the kitchen doorway, wearing pajama pants and one of her high school volleyball t-shirts. "Dad? Where's Mom? I heard yelling earlier." I looked at my daughter, trying to figure out how to explain that her mother had been running a Zex business out of our house. "Your mom and I are having some problems. She's staying somewhere else for a while." Jamie was 17, not 7. She could read between lines. "Are you getting divorced?" "Probably, yes." She nodded slowly, like she'd been expecting this. "Is it because of that guy who's been coming around when you're not here?" My blood went cold. "What guy?" "The one with the fancy car. Mom said he was a client, but..." She shrugged. "I'm not stupid, Dad. And Tyler isn't either. We figured something was going on." "How long have you known?" "A few months. We never said anything because we thought maybe you knew and just didn't want to talk about it." She sat down across from me. "Are we going to be okay?" I reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "We're going to be fine. Better than fine. It might be weird for a while, but we'll figure it out." "Good." I was getting tired of pretending I didn't know what was happening. She stood up. "I'm going to tell Tyler in the morning, okay? He should hear it from me, not from kids at school or whatever." "That's probably a good idea." She kissed the top of my head, something she hadn't done since she was little. "I'm sorry, Dad. This sucks." "Yeah, it does. But we'll get through it." After she went back upstairs, I called Miriam Klein's emergency number. She answered on the second ring. "Alex, how did the confrontation go?" "She's gone. Packed up and left tonight. But she made some threats about going public, trying to turn the kids against me." "Let her try. With the evidence you've got, any judge is going to see right through her. Plus, if she starts spreading lies about you, we can add defamation to the divorce complaint." "What's next?" "I'll file the papers tomorrow morning. Cheating, abandonment of the marital home, and we'll ask for full custody with supervised visitation. Given what she was doing in the house with the children present, that shouldn't be hard to get. The kids knew something was going on. Even better, we can use that to show she was exposing minors to inappropriate related to Zex activity in the home. The judge is going to crucify her." After I hung up, I went through the house, checking doors and windows. It felt like the first night of a new life, and I wasn't sure what to expect. But one thing was certain. Melissa had underestimated me for the last time. Tomorrow, I'd start figuring out exactly how to make her pay for what she'd done to our family. The next morning, I woke up to find Tyler sitting at the kitchen table, eating cereal and staring at his phone with the kind of intense focus that usually meant he was either playing a game or looking at something he shouldn't be. "Morning," I said, pouring coffee. "Jamie talked to you?" "Yeah." He didn't look up from his phone. "She showed me some of the pictures." My blood froze. "What pictures?" "Relax, Dad. Not those pictures. Pictures of the guy's car in our driveway. She's been documenting this stuff for weeks." He finally looked up at me. "We weren't just going to let Mom destroy our family without fighting back." I sat down across from him, suddenly realizing that my kids were a lot more aware and resourceful than I'd given them credit for. "What else do you know?" Tyler shrugged. "Tara's been coming over a lot when you're gone. So has that Simone lady. And there's been weird noises from upstairs." "We're not idiots." "Why didn't you say anything?" "We thought about it, but Jamie said we should wait and see if you figured it out on your own first. She didn't want to be the one to break up the family if there was some explanation we didn't understand." Smart kid. Both of them. "So what do you think about all this?" "I think Mom's an idiot," Tyler said bluntly. "You're a good dad. You work hard, you take care of us, and you never made us feel like we were in the way. If she wanted to mess around with other people, she should have just gotten divorced first instead of sneaking around." Out of the mouths of babes. "It's going to be complicated for a while. There's going to be lawyers and court stuff, And people are probably going to say things about your mom that aren't very nice. People are already saying things about mom that aren't very nice. Jenna's older sister saw her at some party last weekend with that trainer guy, and it's all over social media. Tyler went back to his cereal. At least now we don't have to pretend we don't know what's going on. I spent the morning working, or trying to work, while fielding calls from Miriam about the divorce paperwork and strategy. Around noon, my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. Alex, this is Jax Morrison. I think we need to talk. Jax, the property of Jax guy from the caller. I'd wondered when he'd surface. I don't think we have anything to discuss, I said. Look, man, I know this is awkward, but Melissa's really upset. She's staying at my place, and she's talking about doing some crazy stuff. I think if we could all just sit down and work this out like adults. Adults? I laughed. Jax, you've been screwing my wife in my bed while my kids were in the house. I'm not sure you get to use the word adults in this conversation. It wasn't like that. Melissa said you guys had an arrangement. We didn't. She said you knew about everything and you were okay with it as long as she was discreet. She lied. There was a pause. Oh, mess. Yeah, mess. I was actually enjoying this. So here's what's going to happen, Jax. You're going to stay away from my wife, stay away from my house, and stay away from my family. If I see you anywhere near my kids, I'm going to make your life very complicated. You can't threaten me. I'm not threatening you. I'm explaining the new rules. Melissa is about to be divorced and broke, and you're about to be associated with someone who is essentially running a prostitution ring. I don't think that's going to be great for your personal training business, do you? Another pause. What do you want? I want you to disappear. Melissa made her choices, and now she gets to live with the consequences. But you don't get to drag my kids into this mess any more than you already have. She's got nowhere else to go. Not my problem. I hung up. An hour later, Melissa called. Alex, we need to talk. Jax told me what you said, and you're being completely unreasonable. I'm being unreasonable? Melissa, you turned our bedroom into a film studio and charged people to watch you have sex. I think my response has been pretty reasonable so far. It was never about the money. Your notebook says otherwise. You were charging $200 an hour for private shows, $500 for custom videos. That's not exploration. That's entrepreneurship. Fine, yes, I made some money. But I was going to tell you eventually. When? After you bought a bigger camera? She was quiet for a moment. I want to see the kids. You can see them through supervised visitation once the court approves it. They're my children, too. Then you should have thought about that before you started your side business. Jamie and Tyler already know what's been going on, by the way. They've known for months. They were just waiting to see if I'd figure it out. You turned them against me. I didn't have to. You did that yourself. I was getting tired of this conversation. Melissa, here's the situation. I'm filing for divorce on grounds of cheating. I'm asking for full custody, the house, and spousal support for the kids. You can either cooperate and make this easy, or you can fight it and make it public. Your choice. If you make this public, it'll hurt the kids too. The kids are going to be fine. They're smart, they're tough, and they know the difference between right and wrong. Unlike their mother. She hung up on me. That evening, Jamie came home from school with interesting news. Dad, something weird happened today. Mrs. Henderson came up to me after volleyball practice and started asking all these questions about Mom and whether everything was okay at home. Mrs. Henderson was the mother of one of Jamie's teammates and a notorious neighborhood gossip. What did you tell her? I told her everything was fine and that if she had questions about our family, she should ask you directly. Jamie grinned. But I think word is getting out. Apparently, Tara's husband found some photos on her phone and now they're getting divorced too. This was interesting. What kind of photos? The kind where she wasn't wearing clothes and wasn't with her husband? Jamie sat down at the kitchen table. Dad, how many people were involved in this thing Mom was doing? More than I thought, apparently. Are they all going to get divorced now? Probably some of them. Jamie nodded thoughtfully. Good. If you're going to cheat on your family, you should have to deal with the consequences. My daughter was turning into a very wise young woman. That night, after the kids went to bed, I did something I probably shouldn't have done. I created fake social media accounts and started looking up the people I'd seen in Melissa's videos. It didn't take long to find them, and it took even less time to find photos of them at neighborhood events, school functions, and local businesses. Tara was married to Brian, A guy I'd met at several school fundraisers. They had 3 kids. Simone was married to David, and they had 2 kids. The other people I'd identified were all married, all with families, all living in our general area. Melissa hadn't just been cheating on me. She'd been facilitating a whole network of people cheating on their spouses and families. And now that network was about to collapse. I spent the next hour making a list of names and addresses. Then I started writing letters. If Melissa wanted to play games, I'd show her how games were really played. But I wasn't going to just destroy her life. I was going to destroy the entire network of people who'd been laughing at me behind my back. By the time I went to bed, I had a plan that would make Melissa's divorce look like a minor inconvenience compared to what was about to happen to everyone else involved in her little business venture. Tomorrow, I'd start mailing the letters. The letters went out on Friday. By Monday morning, my phone was ringing nonstop. The first call was from Brian Henderson, Tara's husband. His voice was shaking with rage. "Alex, this is Brian. I got your letter. Is this real?" "Every word," I said. "I'm sorry you had to find out this way, but I thought you deserved to know what your wife was doing." "You have proof?" "Video, photos, financial records, everything." I paused. "Brian, I'm not trying to destroy your marriage, but if Tara was involved in this, you need to know about it. She's been lying to me for months. All those real estate meetings with Melissa, all those afternoons when she said she was showing houses." His voice broke. "My kids are going to find out their mother is a sex worker. Your kids are going to find out their mother made some very bad choices. What you do with that information is up to you." After Brian hung up, the calls kept coming. David, Simone's husband. Mark, whose wife Jennifer had apparently been one of Melissa's regular performers. 3 other men whose wives I'd identified from the videos. Each conversation was the same: shock, anger, demands for proof, and then the horrible realization that their marriages were over. By Tuesday, word was spreading through the neighborhood like wildfire. I saw groups of women talking in hushed voices at the grocery store, conversations that stopped abruptly when they saw me. The school pickup line became a minefield of awkward glances and whispered gossip. Wednesday morning, Tyler came home from school with a black eye. "What happened?" I asked, getting ice from the freezer. "Jimmy Patterson said Mom was a promiscuous person and that you were probably too stupid to notice, so I hit him." "Tyler, I'm not going to let people talk about our family like that, even if Mom screwed up." He winced as I pressed the ice pack to his face. "Besides, Jimmy's mom was in some of those videos too, according to what people are saying. He doesn't get to judge us." "How do you know what people are saying?" "Dad, I'm 14, not 4. Kids talk, parents talk. Everyone knows what happened." He looked at me seriously. "But most people think you're handling it the right way. Nobody blames you for what Mom did." That afternoon, I got a call from Jax. "You son of an unpleasant person," he said without preamble. "Do you know what you've done?" "I've told the truth. What's the problem?" "The problem is that half my clients have canceled their memberships. The other half are asking questions I can't answer. My business is ruined." "Maybe you should have thought about that before you started sleeping with married women." "This isn't over. Melissa and I are going to fight back. We're going to tell everyone what kind of man you really are." "What kind of man am I, Jax?" "The kind who destroys people's lives for revenge." "I destroyed people's lives?" "Jax, you and Melissa destroyed your own lives. I just made sure everyone knew about it." I was actually enjoying this conversation. "But please, tell me what you're going to say about me." "I'm curious. We'll figure something out." "No, you won't. Because there's nothing to figure out. I work from home, I take care of my kids, and I pay my taxes. The most scandalous thing in my life is that I sometimes drink beer for breakfast on weekends." I paused. "You, on the other hand, were running a Zex business with married women. Good luck spinning that into a positive story." He hung up, but not before I heard Melissa's voice in the background, shouting something I couldn't make out. Thursday evening, I was making dinner when someone knocked on the front door. I opened it to find Simone standing on my porch, her eyes red from crying. "Alex, we need to talk." "I don't think we do. Please, just 5 minutes." She looked around nervously. "David threw me out. He's filing for divorce, and he's going to try to take the kids. I need you to tell him that this wasn't what it looked like." "What did it look like?" "Like I was cheating on him for money?" "Weren't you?" She started crying again. "It wasn't supposed to be like that. Melissa said it was just friends having fun, exploring our sexuality. She said the money was just to cover expenses, equipment, things like that." "How much money did you make, Simone?" I don't know, maybe 3 or 4,000 over the past few months. $3 or $4,000 is not covering expenses. That's income. And you didn't report it on your taxes, did you? Her face went white. Oh God, I never thought about taxes. Melissa didn't mention that part, did she? I stepped back from the door. Simone, I'm sorry your marriage is falling apart, but you made choices. Now you have to live with the consequences. You could tell David that I was coerced, that Melissa manipulated me. Were you coerced? Not exactly, but then no. I can't tell him that. I started to close the door. Good luck with everything. Wait, she put her hand on the door. What if I testified against Melissa in your divorce? What if I told the court that she was the ringleader, that she pressured all of us into this? I paused. Were you pressured? She made it sound so normal, so harmless. She said lots of couples were doing this kind of thing, that it was just a modern way of exploring relationships. But nobody forced you to take your clothes off on camera. No, and nobody forced you to take money for it. No. Then you weren't coerced, Simone. You were just stupid. I closed the door. Friday morning, I got the call I'd been waiting for. Miriam, my lawyer, sounded almost gleeful. Alex, you're not going to believe this. Melissa's lawyer called this morning. She wants to settle. What kind of settlement? She'll agree to everything. You get the house, full custody, no spousal support. She just wants this to go away quietly. What's the catch? No catch. I think she's realized that if this goes to court, it's going to become public record. All those videos, all those photos, all those financial records. Her little business venture is going to be front page news in the local paper. And if we settle, it stays private. She disappears, you keep your family together, and everyone moves on with their lives. I thought about it for a moment. Part of me wanted to drag Melissa through court to make her face a judge and explain what she'd done. But the bigger part of me just wanted this to be over. What about the other divorces? The other families that are falling apart because of what she did? Not your problem. You told the truth, and people made their own decisions about what to do with that information. Set up the settlement meeting, I said. Let's end this. But even as I said it, I knew it wasn't really over. Melissa had destroyed too many lives, hurt too many people. A quiet divorce wasn't going to be enough. She wanted this to go away quietly. Too bad. I was just getting started. The settlement meeting was scheduled for the following Tuesday at Miriam's office. I arrived early and spent 20 minutes reviewing the paperwork that would officially end my marriage and give me everything I wanted. The house, full custody of the kids, and freedom from the woman who'd turned my life into a lie. Melissa walked in 10 minutes late, accompanied by a lawyer I didn't recognize, a thin, nervous-looking man who kept checking his phone like he had somewhere else he'd rather be. She looked terrible. Her usually perfect hair was limp and unwashed. Her makeup couldn't hide the dark circles under her eyes, and she'd lost weight in a way that made her look hollow rather than healthy. Alex, she said, not quite meeting my eyes. Melissa. We sat on opposite sides of Miriam's conference table like opposing armies negotiating a ceasefire. Her lawyer, Patterson, I think his name was, spread out papers with the kind of efficiency that suggested he wanted this over as quickly as possible. My client is prepared to agree to all terms as outlined, Patterson said. Full custody to Mr. Grant, no spousal support, division of assets as requested. In exchange, we ask that all evidence related to the breakdown of the marriage remain confidential and not be shared with any third parties. I looked at Melissa. She was staring at her hands, which were folded in her lap like a schoolgirl in trouble. A little late for that, isn't it? What do you mean? Patterson asked. I mean, I've already shared the evidence with several interested parties. The husbands of the women who were involved in my wife's business venture, for example. Melissa's head snapped up. You did what? I told them the truth about what their wives were doing, just like I'm going to tell the truth to anyone else who asks. That wasn't part of our agreement, Patterson started. We don't have an agreement yet, Miriam interrupted smoothly, and my client has every right to share factual information about his wife's activities, especially when those activities affected other families. Melissa was shaking now, whether from anger or fear, I couldn't tell. Alex, please. You've already destroyed my life? Isn't that enough? Have I destroyed your life? Or did you destroy it yourself when you decided to turn our bedroom into a film studio? I made mistakes. You made choices. And choices have consequences. I leaned forward. Here's what's going to happen, Melissa. We're going to sign these papers. You're going to disappear from my life and my children's lives, except for supervised visits. And I'm going to continue telling the truth about what you did to anyone who asks. If you don't like those terms, we can go to court and make everything public record." Patterson whispered something in Melissa's ear. She shook her head, whispered something back, and then looked at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Pure hatred. "Fine," she said, "but this isn't over." "Yes, it is." We signed the papers in silence. Melissa's signature was shaky, like her hands weren't quite working properly. When it was done, she stood up without a word and walked out, leaving Patterson to gather the paperwork and mumble apologies about his client's emotional state. After they left, Miriam poured 2 glasses of whiskey from a bottle she kept in her desk drawer. "Congratulations," she said, raising her glass. "You're officially divorced, and you got everything you wanted." "Did I? House, kids, freedom from a cheating wife who was running a Zex business out of your bedroom? What more could you want?" I thought about that question as I drove home. What more did I want? Melissa was out of my life, the kids were safe, and I had enough evidence to destroy anyone who tried to cause problems for my family in the future. But it still didn't feel finished. That evening, Tyler came home from school with interesting news. "Dad, weird stuff is happening at school. Like, half the parents are getting divorced, and everyone's talking about some kind of Zex scandal in the neighborhood. What are people saying? That a bunch of moms were making adult content videos and selling them online? And that one of the dads found out and told all the other dads." Tyler looked at me carefully. "That was you, wasn't it? What makes you think that?" "Because you're the only dad I know who's smart enough to figure something like that out and ruthless enough to burn down everyone involved. My son knew me well. How do you feel about that?" "I think it's awesome. These people were laughing at you behind your back, treating you like an idiot, and using our house for their gross business. They deserved whatever they got." That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Melissa's parting words. This isn't over. What did that mean? What could she possibly do to me at this point? I got my answer the next morning. I was working in my office when my phone rang. The caller ID showed the name of one of my biggest clients, a law firm that provided about 30% of my annual income. "Alex, this is Jennifer Walsh from Morrison, Walsh & Associates. We need to talk." Jennifer was the managing partner, a no-nonsense woman who'd been using my services for 3 years. She sounded upset. "What's going on, Jennifer?" "We received some disturbing information about your business practices. Specifically, allegations that you've been accepting cash payments from clients and not reporting them to the IRS." My blood went cold. That's not true. "We also received copies of what appear to be compromising photos of you with various women, along with suggestions that you've been trading IT services for related to Zex favors." "Jennifer, that's completely false. I've never—" "Alex, I don't know what's true and what isn't, but we can't be associated with this kind of scandal. We're terminating our contract, effective immediately." She hung up before I could respond. Over the next hour, I received similar calls from 4 other clients. The story was always the same: anonymous tips about my alleged misconduct, fake evidence, and immediate termination of services. Melissa was trying to destroy my business the same way I'd destroyed her marriage. The problem was, her lies were easier to disprove than my truths had been to prove. I had meticulous financial records, tax returns, and business documentation going back years. I'd never accepted cash payments without reporting them, and I'd certainly never traded services for related to Zex favors, but mud sticks, and in the short term, I was looking at a significant loss of income. I called Miriam. "She's playing dirty," I said after explaining what had happened, "and she's about to get crushed for it. Defamation, interference with business relationships, filing false reports. We can bury her in lawsuits." "How long will that take?" "Months, maybe a year. But Alex, she just made a huge mistake. She's given us grounds to reopen the divorce settlement and go after her for damages." "I want to do more than sue her." "What do you mean?" I mean, I want to destroy her so completely that she never tries something like this again." There was a pause. "What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking it's time to make everything public. The videos, the photos, the business records, everything. Let the whole world see what kind of person she really is." "That's nuclear, Alex. Once you do that, there's no going back." "Good, I don't want to go back." That evening, I sat down with Jamie and Tyler and explained what their mother was trying to do. "She's trying to destroy Dad's business?" Tyler asked. "With lies," Jamie added. "That's really low, even for her." "What are you going to do?" Tyler asked. I looked at my kids, these two amazing people who'd been dragged into a mess they didn't create and didn't deserve. They deserved better than a mother who would try to destroy their father out of spite. I'm going to end this, I said, permanently. How? By making sure everyone knows exactly what kind of person your mother is. Jamie and Tyler looked at each other, having one of those silent conversations that siblings have. Do it, Jamie said finally. She made her choices. Now she gets to live with everyone knowing about them. Tyler nodded. Just make sure it doesn't hurt us too. It won't. I promise. The next morning, I started making phone calls. Local newspapers, online gossip sites, social media influencers who specialized in scandal and drama. I had a story to tell, and I had the evidence to back it up. By the end of the week, Melissa's face was going to be on every screen and every front page in the city. She wanted to play games? Game over. It took 3 days to arrange everything. 3 days of phone calls, email exchanges, and careful coordination to make sure the story broke everywhere at once, with maximum impact and no chance for Melissa to get ahead of it. I started with Channel 7 News, the local station that loved scandal almost as much as they loved ratings. I called their investigative reporter, a woman named Sarah Chen, who'd built her career on exposing corruption and hypocrisy in suburban communities. I have a story for you, I told her. Zex, lies, tax evasion, and the destruction of multiple families, all happening right here in the suburbs, all documented with video evidence. Sarah was interested. Next, I contacted the editor of the local newspaper, a weekly publication that served our neighborhood and 3 surrounding communities. They'd been struggling for readership, and I was about to hand them the biggest story of the year. Then I reached out to several online platforms that specialized in exposing infidelity and related to Zex scandals. These sites had millions of followers who loved nothing more than watching privileged suburban families implode in spectacular fashion. Finally, I created my own social media accounts and started building an audience. It didn't take long. Scandal travels fast, especially when you have the evidence to back it up. On Thursday morning, everything went live at once. The Channel 7 story led with the headline, Suburban Zex Ring Exposed, Local Real Estate Agent Ran Prostitution Business from Family Home. They interviewed me, showed carefully edited clips from Melissa's videos, and featured reactions from neighbors and community leaders expressing shock and outrage. The newspaper went with House of Lies, How One Woman's Secret Business Destroyed Multiple Marriages. They published financial records showing how much money Melissa and her performers had made, along with tax documents proving that none of it had been reported as income. The online scandal sites were less subtle. MILF Real Estate Agent Turns Family Home into Adult Content Studio was the most popular headline, accompanied by photos of our house, Melissa's real estate headshots, and screenshots from her videos with faces blurred but bodies clearly visible. My social media posts went viral within hours. I'd written a detailed account of discovering my wife's secret business, complete with photos of the evidence and copies of the notebook where she'd recorded her appointments and payments. The posts were shared thousands of times, with comments ranging from sympathy for me and the kids to outrage at Melissa's behavior. By noon, there were news vans parked outside our house and reporters trying to interview neighbors about the suburban Zex scandal. I'd taken the kids to school early and warned them to expect chaos, but I don't think any of us were prepared for the media feeding frenzy that erupted. My phone started ringing around 1 o'clock. The first call was from Jax. "You psychopath!" he screamed. "Do you see what you've done? My gym is surrounded by reporters. My clients are canceling their memberships. My landlord is trying to evict me." "Sounds like you're facing the consequences of your actions," I said calmly. "This is going to destroy both of us. When people find out what Melissa was really doing, when they see those videos, what Melissa was really doing, Jax, people know exactly what she was doing. That's the point. You don't understand. Some of those videos, some of those clients, there are people involved who have serious money, serious power, people who don't want this kind of attention. Then they should have thought about that before they paid my wife for Zex. Alex, you need to take this down, all of it, before someone gets hurt. Someone already got hurt. Me, my kids, all the families that were destroyed because you and Melissa thought you were smarter than everyone else. This isn't over. Yes, it is. I hung up. The second call was from Melissa. She was crying so hard I could barely understand her. "Alex, please, you have to stop this. It's everywhere. Everyone knows. My parents called, my sister called, people from college are sending me messages. Good. Now everyone knows what kind of person you really are. You're destroying me. You destroyed yourself. I'm just making sure everyone knows about it. What about the kids? How are they going to handle everyone knowing their mother is a what, Melissa? A sex worker? A liar? A woman who turned their family home into a brothel? I was surprised by how calm I sounded. The kids are going to be fine. They're strong, they're smart, and they know the difference between right and wrong, unlike their mother. I'll end myself before I let this continue. No, you won't. You're too selfish for that. You'll disappear for a while, maybe move to another state, maybe change your name. But you won't end yourself, because that would require taking responsibility for what you've done. She hung up, but not before I heard her sobbing. The third call was from Miriam, my lawyer. Alex, what the hell have you done? I've told the truth. You've started a media war. My phone hasn't stopped ringing. Other lawyers, reporters, people claiming to be sufferers of this alleged sex ring. It's not alleged. I have video evidence. That's not the point. The point is that you've made this into a public spectacle instead of handling it through proper legal channels. The proper legal channels were too slow and too quiet. This way, everyone knows exactly what happened. And Melissa can never try to spin the story or make herself look like a sufferer. She's threatening to sue you for defamation, invasion of privacy, intentional infliction of emotional distress. Let her try. Everything I've released is true and documented. She can't sue me for telling the truth. Alex, this is going to get ugly. It's already ugly. Now it's just public. That evening, I picked up the kids from school and brought them home through a gauntlet of reporters and cameras. Jamie and Tyler handled it like pros, keeping their heads down and ignoring the shouted questions about their mother and our family. Once we were inside, I made dinner while they filled me in on their day. It was weird, Jamie said. Some kids were asking questions, but most people were just treating us normally. I think everyone feels bad for us. A few people said their parents were getting divorced too, Tyler added. I guess when all this stuff came out, it caused problems in other families. How do you feel about that? Tyler shrugged. If their parents were cheating too, then they deserve to get caught. At least now all the lies are out in the open. After dinner, we sat in the living room and watched the evening news coverage of our story. It was surreal seeing our house on television, hearing reporters discuss our family like we were characters in a soap opera. Do you think Mom will try to come back? Jamie asked. No, she's too embarrassed, and she knows she'd face criminal charges for the tax evasion and prostitution. Good, Tyler said. We're better off without her. As I put the kids to bed that night, I reflected on everything that had happened. 3 weeks ago, I'd been a clueless husband working from home while my wife ran a Zex business 12 feet away. Now, I was a single father whose story was being discussed on national news programs and social media platforms around the world. Melissa had tried to destroy my business and my reputation with lies. Instead, she'd given me the motivation to destroy her life with the truth. My phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. You won. Are you happy now? I typed back, yes. Another message. I hope it was worth it. I looked around my house. My house now, officially and legally. My kids were safe, my business would recover, and the woman who'd betrayed our family was facing consequences that would follow her for the rest of her life. It was, I typed back. The phone went silent after that. Over the next few days, the media attention gradually died down. Other scandals emerged to capture the public's attention, and our story became yesterday's news. But the damage to Melissa and her network of co-conspirators was permanent. Jax's gym went out of business. Tara, Simone, and the other women involved all faced divorce proceedings and public humiliation. Several of them moved away from the area, unable to handle the constant whispers and stares. Melissa disappeared entirely. I heard rumors that she'd moved to another state, possibly changed her name, definitely changed her career. She never tried to contact the kids again, never asked for visitation, never even sent a birthday card. It was like she'd never existed, except for the viral videos and news stories that would follow her forever, thanks to the permanent nature of the internet. 6 months later, I was sitting in my office working on a new client project when Tyler came home from school with a huge grin on his face. Dad, you're not going to believe this. Jenny Morrison's mom just got arrested for running an escort service out of their house. Apparently, after all the stuff with Mom came out, someone tipped off the police about other women doing the same thing. I looked up from my computer. How do you feel about that? I feel like justice is being served. If people want to cheat on their families and break the law, they should face the consequences. My son had learned an important lesson about actions and consequences, accountability and justice. It wasn't the lesson I'd planned to teach him, but it might have been the most valuable one he'd ever learn. That evening, as I was making dinner, Jamie came into the kitchen with her laptop. "Dad, I've been thinking about what happened with Mom, and I want to show you something." She turned the screen toward me. It was a college application essay titled, "Learning to Tell the Truth: How My Father Taught Me About Integrity." "I wrote about everything that happened," she said, "about how you could have just gotten divorced quietly. But instead you chose to expose the truth, even though it was harder and messier and more painful. I wrote about how you showed me that doing the right thing isn't always the easy thing, but it's always worth it." I read the essay, feeling proud and heartbroken at the same time. My daughter had learned something important from this mess, something that would serve her well for the rest of her life. "What do you think?" she asked. "I think you're going to get into every college you apply to. And I think you're the best dad in the world." That night, after the kids went to bed, I sat in my office looking at the wooden box that had started everything. I'd kept it as evidence during the divorce proceedings, but now it just seemed like a relic of a different life. I took it outside and threw it in the trash. Then I went back inside, locked the door, and started planning the rest of my life. A life without lies, without betrayal, without people who thought they were smarter than everyone else. A life where actions had consequences, and the truth always won in the end.